Hi, this is Dave Campbell with Dave Campbell Shorts, and this reading is the third of 7 visions. In an old Chevrolet Suburban, my best friend Mike and I were driving along a bush path that was on a desert plains in India. We were headed straight east, about 35 miles per hour, and I was gazing out the window and noticed a pair of lions running through the desert on a parallel course, but a good 100 yards to the south. The lions, one large and healthy, the other thin and weakly, then disappeared into the dried bushes ahead of us, still a good 100 yards out. Mike and I were chatting, not discussing anything of particular importance. Mike was driving, and he suddenly decided to turn off the road to the south into a small path that was overgrown in brush and spindly trees. Almost immediately, the front of the Suburban began to dive down steadily into the quicksand. The rear tires were still on dry, rocky road, so Mike tried without success to back up and out of the quicksand. Soon water began to spill into the windows, and we both climbed out through the windows and jumped back to the dry ground. Not saying anything, we stood on the dry road and watched the Suburban. After a moment or two, I realized that Mike was not there. I called for him, but he was gone. Suddenly, I felt myself sinking into the once dry road beneath my feet. Steadily downward, I was oozing into the quicksand, which was thick like a milkshake. Strangely, I was not alarmed, but I called again for Mike, and he did not respond. Slowly and steadily, I sank and was up to my waist. When I called again for Mike, no response. I began to study the brush along the road, as if I was fascinated to be India and wanting to pay close attention and make comparisons to our topography and that of India. Sinking now up to my chest, still not in a panic, I realized Mike would not be coming. All right. At that point, the first of the 2 lions appeared from the brush with his eye looking into mine and giving an expression of delight and complete superiority as I sank down. He then lay down in a nonchalant but gloating way and crossed his paws. He was panting like big lions do, waiting for the inevitable. I looked back at him, not afraid at all. I then began to stare him down, and he seemed to be irritated at that and got to his feet, growling. He approached as if to say, "You are dead." Up to my armpits in the muck, he lunged, roaring with mouth wide and all the big teeth. All at once, I flung my arms up with hands open and grabbed both sides of his large face, my hands just beneath his ears. I thrust my forehead into his, and eye to eye, we were locked in a standoff. He could not escape my grasp, and I could feel the edge of his teeth on my wrists as he roared wildly. With superhuman strength, I began to pull him down toward me into the quicksand. He fell forward, and I took advantage to reach into the fur on his back and climb up. He went further in, and I pulled myself out of the muck on his back. I scrambled onto the safe ground and noticed a large boulder about 12 inches across, oval and smooth but heavy. I held the rock over my head and, aiming at his head and bending with all my force, I smote the lion on the head and crushed his head. 3 blows and he was dead, a floating carcass in the swamp. Not really feeling over relieved, just in a state of wonder, I turned back to the west and began to walk back toward where we had come from. After a few minutes, Mike joined me on my right side, and we walked and talked until we came to a village. Apparently, we had been there to help the villagers rebuild. They were happy to see us, and we immediately got on to work. They were happy to see us, and we immediately got on with the work at hand.